Good morning. I'm Dave Christie with your LaRouche Organization update for Thursday, June 26th. We have now plunged headlong and hopefully not irreversibly into what Helga LaRouche characterized earlier this week as a chaotic breakdown of the world system where the entire international order is in shambles. Now that obviously followed the attacks that we had over the weekend on Iran, the U.S. illegal attacks on Iran. They may not have been so horrific in their effect, as we'll come to in a moment, but they are horrific for what they've done to the UN Charter, the U.S. Constitution, and in general, the rules of engagement in warfare. As you may have heard earlier in the week, Nebenzia, the UN Security Council, Russia's ambassador to the UN Security, the United Nations, said to the Security Council, through its actions, the U.S. has opened a Pandora's box, and no one knows what new consequences this may lead to. Now, today at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Defense Minister meeting, Andrei Belousov, who is the defense minister in Russia, said that the current military political situation in the world remains complex and tends to deteriorate. Geopolitical contradictions have intensified. The fundamental foundations of strategic stability are being destroyed. So that's partly what I want to cover is the, beyond the attack on the UN Charter, the principles contained therein, and the principles of the U.S. Constitution, we've entered into a new era of dangerous and illegal warfare. So I figured it'd be worthwhile to start with the British, who are ultimately the architects of this kind of warfare. I'm going to cover what Hamish de Bretton Gordon writes out of the Telegraph. Now, he has a military background in chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear, so these are certainly in his wheelhouse. What he says of the attacks inside Iran, he says, Operation Midnight Hammer, an incredible demonstration of U.S. military and Israeli operations before it, have made plain the fragility of Russian air defense systems. Again, this is in the Telegraph earlier this week, a few days ago. And then he goes on to say, Putin will be quaking in his boots today. Israel has shown he is vulnerable. These events will be shaking the very foundations of the Russian military. So, obviously, we were told this was about Iran, but from the British standpoint, this has always been about Russia and really about China and the other nations of the BRICS dynamic that is increasing its effect and power. Now, I want to just finish what Hamish de Bretton Gordon says in this article. He says that these joint operations by the Israel and United States, quote, allow them to pinpoint and assassinate key leaders and nuclear scientists almost at will. And then he notes the parallels to the Operation Spiderweb, which was the Ukrainian so-called attack on the Russian strategic air fleet. De Bretton Gordon goes on to say, Russia's strategic air fleet was decimated several times over, which stands testament to their effectiveness. It is now clear that America has total overmatch against Russia's forces, and if Trump chose to, he could inflict total battlefield defeat on Putin or eliminate him personally by equipping Ukraine with the same weapons that Israel has. Now, what weapons are those? Could it be Israel's secret nuclear weapons? Now, I think just to make a point, again, going back to this new form of dangerous warfare, certainly what Belousov, I'm sure, is well aware of and was referring to, that undermines the rules of engagement and so on. I want to point to the work of investigative journalist Kit Clarenberg, who does work with Gray Zone. But he has, in light of the Debret and Gordon's comparisons between spiderweb and the Iran operation. But earlier this week, Klarenberg published in the Gray Zone a report indicating that Project Alchemy, which is a secret British and American academic intelligence cell, whose mission is to, quote, keep Ukraine fighting by imposing strategic dilemmas, costs, and frictions upon Russia. But what this group is apparently behind plans to encourage Ukraine to adopt ISIS-style drone tactics against Russian railways. Break the track and wait for the engineers to come fix it, then use the drone to kill them. This is the kind of double tap operation with terrorist operations. These are apparently, according to leaked documents. I won't cover this in depth. I refer you to Klarenberg's more detailed work. I would also just add that this type of warfare, really terrorist warfare, that is now being engaged by the British and special forces, CIA operations types in the United States, Mossad, all these agencies. These are recently the former UK diplomat and intelligence officer Alistair Crook has referred to this as synergistic warfare, the kind of hybrid warfare that brings in the various forms of special forces, cyber, and then, of course, there's the more expanded elements of this, which include diplomatic, economic, political warfare waged on nations and our own, I would add. So I think, where does all this lead to? Especially in light of what has just come out from the Defense Intelligence Agency, according to in so-called leaked documents yesterday. These contradicted, you've probably seen this in various press reports, but this DIA report contradicted Trump's claim that the Iranian nuclear program, or their nuclear energy program, was decimated, obliterated, as he called it. That basically this DIA report said that this was bunk. And this will lead, as it was even before the attack occurred, on the whole debate about whether the so-called bunker busters would actually take care of the job. There was already people screaming, well, we need the mini nukes, these little miniature nukes that just so happen to be a higher yield than those dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, or the potential to dial them up that far. So that we all will undoubtedly hear more of those kind of calls that we have to unleash the mini nukes. We don't know what Trump will do on this front. He seems to stand, in light of the DIA report, by his conviction that it was all obliterated, it's gone. Is he doing this because he wants to walk back from the precipice, play both sides? I'm the victorious war president that took out Iran's nuclear program, but I also got the ceasefire that for the moment is holding. Therefore, the Nobel Prize, these kind of business. We don't know what's going on in Trump's mind, or whether he's a fully captured asset in all of this. But there has been a damage control operation in light of the DIA report, where Mossad and CIA, that is Ratcliffe CIA, are both coming out to say that, we have the evidence that Iran was one step away from nuclear weapons, therefore we had to attack. Even Netanyahu's office has come out backing up Trump's claims to the obliteration. I would refer you to Max Blumenthal, also of the Gray Zone, where he discusses with Judge Napolitano that he had sources in the White House who claim that this operation to push Trump away from the intelligence estimates of Tulsi Gabbard, the intelligence estimate of the intelligence community that Gabbard testified to earlier in March, that there were essentially Mossad assets and and that Ratcliffe, who Blumenthal asserts is a kind of a cultivated, AIPAC cultivated individual. Anyway, that these were the ones who got Trump to override his own intelligence community estimates and push for this operation. So anyway, I think, as I mentioned, Netanyahu is saying that Trump was correct on this, that they had the evidence. This was backed up by statements from his office. Trump's apparently also now calling for Netanyahu to be pardoned and the criminal charges dropped. So we don't know what's all going on in this. One thing we can say for sure is that Trump is presently snared in the British spider's web. And that was to get him to go along with the forever wars that he claimed to be against in his election campaign. So what he needs to do immediately, call a halt to this insanity, call Putin, Xi Jinping, other leaders of the BRICS dynamic, and get a international discussion going about stopping this strategic insanity, but they must do so according to what Helga Zepp-LaRouche has called for with her 10 principles. We need a new international and development security architecture, not just to stop the danger of nuclear warfare, but to ensure the economic development for all nations and get rid of the British imperial financial structure, which is disintegrating and is the cause for this war. So join us over the next week, moving into Independence Day next Friday. Distribute the TLO leaflet, Will There Be Thermonuclear Fireworks by the 4th of July? That question is more relevant now than ever. So stay tuned to the LaRouche organization, join the International Peace Coalition meeting tomorrow, and mobilize with us.